Okay, this looks pretty good. You get a kind of sense of scale in here. The first thing that jumps out to me is the size of this texture on the floor, where if that's like kind of a metal grate, first of all, it looks stretched horizontally, plus the size of these, if those are holes, the character would just, foot would fall right through there. So I think you need to make that much denser to look and scale. And then you've got some weird kind of stretching things on here and here. There as well, and here we should look at. And but I think that camera composition is interesting. I think I'm assuming that's a window and not an opening. I'm not really sure, but if that's glass, we'll probably want to make sure there's a surface there that can have some kind of reflection, so it gives us the sense that it's not just an opening, unless it is supposed to be an opening. Let's take a look at Maya. Um, wow, so it's just one surface, huh? And so you've just assigned a bunch of different materials to the one surface. I'm not sure that's going to work when we get into an Arnold render. Um, so it would be better to do it properly, where you UV map it and then you paint the texture like normal instead of just assigning stuff to different faces. But just looking at what you have right now. Um, that's interesting. It looks like you just took textures from some other source and then tried to fit them to the model you made. Um, and so yeah, I mean, I think you're trying to take that, is it? And then stretch it across. It's just not, this isn't a great way. It's kind of like a rushed, sort of half-baked way of going about this, because because you took all these textures which look like they were intended for something else and just sort of applied them to different parts of this. Um, I think it's hard to adjust, after the fact. Because you can't really, take this and repeat it. I mean, there's a little bit of room. Like I could take this shell and that's slightly better than this, but clearly it's not. I mean, so what you need is to have a repeating texture of this grate so that you have enough of that. Right now, it's just, obviously the holes are way too big. I mean, what I would say is rather than taking textures that were meant for something else and trying to apply them to yours, you should take textures and, kind of apply to yours in a custom way, like either find or create textures that you want to use. But it looks like because like this is clearly part of some other, used for some other environment, and then you're trying to make it fit yours. And I would say the modeling here is very, limited. It doesn't look like you put a lot of time into the model. Um, yeah, and there's not a sense of like what's here, and you have stretch textures here. And there's also no props, there's no objects in the scene for the character to interact with or give a sense of scale. I mean, the scale looks really, really wrong, particularly with this grate on the bottom. That's not going to work. So what I would do is, I mean, if you go to something like CG, or was it just textures.com now, I think? Textures.com, I think. And you look for like, you know, metal grate or something like that. There's some, that's not what I was looking for, really. I mean, some of these look kind of good, actually. But I was looking for one that was closer. That's sort of like what you have. Look, you even have the black and yellow stripes on this, like you like. Anyway, the idea being that you would find this and kind of download these, put it into your texture in the proper spot of the UV map, make sure it's repeating enough so that, it's the right size. Just pick one you like the look of. And they have repeating ones too. Like, I don't know if you can filter for that. I don't see a filter. But like, yeah, this is a seamless one as an example. So it's if that's repeating, then it's a seamless repeating texture, and then you can apply that in multiple ways to your. Like, I'm just gonna. So you have to log in to download. And then you can, so you can get the free one. You should put in the source images of the project you're working on, which I guess I can do. And yours. And then, if we look at the UV map for this, I mean, I wouldn't just decide. I mean, the UV map is kind of a mess. I mean, I would do a proper UV map, where you cut it up and have the different sections and then apply the textures to the different sections. But here you've got, it's just like everything's a different map on a different face, and you have all these faces overlapping each other and not in any kind of sensible order. I mean, this is just not a proper workflow. You should, cut up the model, UV map it, lay it out, put the textures on the different areas. I would just start over. It's just not. This is just not a proper way to work, and it's sort of sloppy and quick, and then these are the results. So I don't know. I mean, it's because it's just the way you've done this. It just looked like a quick way to get sort of mediocre results, but there's no really good way to fix any of the problems now, because you've just taken these textures that don't, that are meant for something else to apply to this, and I don't think it's going to work well. So, what you should have is a proper UV map where you cut it up and unfold it and then apply the textures to the different areas like we did with the characters on the other objects and those kinds of things.